Okay, everyone, so we're going to learn a little bit today about note values. And there are two things we need to make a melody or a piece of music or a song. One is rhythm, and the other is notes or pitch. We're going to deal with rhythm today. Rhythm is how we organize notes or how we structure the notes or pitches to create a piece of music. And it's written on the stave. All music is written or can be written on the stave. There are other ways of writing music, of course. For example, if you're a guitar player, you can read what's called tab. But the stave is where we write what's known as standard notation. This is a system for writing music that is used across the world. So it's 5 lines, 5 parallel lines, and you can place notes at various points along this stave, and that will tell a musician what pitch to play and how to organize the notes or what rhythm to play. At the beginning of the stave, you should always have what's called a clef. In this case here, we're looking at a treble clef, and we will have drawn some of these in class. It doesn't always have to be a treble clef at the start. We can have a bass clef, an alto clef, and so on. But the most common clef that you're going to use in school is going to be the treble clef there. You should always see a clef, unless it's written just for unpitched percussion. You should always see a clef at the beginning. And it lets musicians know what range of notes or what instruments are suitable to play this piece of music. So, in class, we looked at this tutorial here for how to draw a treble clef. I'm not going to leave that. I'm not going to use that here. But if you do feel like looking at it yourself, please do. Immediately to the right of the clef, you should see what we call a time signature. Time signature tells us two things. The top number of a time signature tells us how many beats there are per bar, and the bottom number tells us what type of beat. So, for example, 4/4 time means there are 4 crotchet beats per bar. In this case here, in the bottom left corner of the diagram here, this piece of music is in 3/4 time, which means there are 3 crotchet beats per bar. Do take note, it's not a fraction. While I might have said here that there are 4, it looks like 4/4, like 4 quarters, we don't put a line in between the two notes there. It's not 3/4, it's 3/4. So take care when you're writing out your time signature. So we're going to look at the first type of note here. This is what we call a semibreve. It's like an oval, really. Another name for a semibreve is a whole note, and it lasts for 4 beats, and it takes up a whole bar in 4/4 time. And considering that most music, the majority of music you're going to come across will be in 4/4 time, it explains why we call it a whole note. It takes up the whole bar in 4/4 time, 4 beats each. It has an equivalent rest. This is a semibreve rest, just a rectangular block hanging from the 4th line of the stave. And it's the opposite of a semibreve. A semibreve rest means there should be 4 beats of silence, as opposed to a note that lasts for 4 beats. After this, we have a minim, or a half note. As you can see, it looks like a semibreve, but it has a line coming out of it. We call this line a stem. Now, the placement of the stem is important. You also have to make sure the note is completely accurately placed. So if it's on a space, it has to be completely in between the two lines, and it can't kind of spill onto the line. It must be completely on the in between the two lines. The stem, if the note is below the 3rd line, the stem must go up and from the right-hand side of the note. If it's above the 3rd line, the stem must come down from the left-hand side of the note. If the note is on the 3rd line, it can go up or down, and you need to use your judgment here by looking at the notes either side of the note to see which way the stem is best suited. And then we also have an equivalent rest, a minim or a half note rest. It looks very like the semibreve rest, and it can be confusing because they look so similar, but the minim rest sits on the 3rd line, whereas a semibreve rest hangs from the 4th line. So this indicates that there should be 2 beats of silence, whereas with a minim there are 2 beats of sound. And then, a very common note here, this is a crotchet or a quarter note. Again, it's called a quarter note because in 4/4 time, it takes up a quarter of the bar. It lasts for 1 beat. Now, to clap out these rhythms or to play these rhythms, we're going to associate some sounds with each note. The first sound that we're going to associate with here is ta. So when you see a crotchet, you're going to say the word ta. Just for practice, and again I have it indicated here, we will do this in class. Write 4 crotchets into your manuscript copy. 2 on the 1st space, 2 on the 3rd space. It should look like this. Take note again, when you go above the 3rd line, the stem comes down from the left-hand side. When you're below the 3rd line, the stem goes up from the right-hand side. When you're on the 3rd line, the stem can go either direction, and again, you use your judgment here by looking at the notes either side of it. As with all the other notes, we have a crotchet rest as well. And has the same length as a crotchet, but we remain silent for this time and we say shh instead of ta. So if we are playing a crotchet or clapping a crotchet, we say ta. To observe a crotchet rest, we say shh. Now they're quite difficult to draw, so I do recommend practicing this a little bit, and of course using pencil for all of this. So we're going to put those sounds and rhythms into action now here. So if we look at the first example here, we have 2 crotchets and 2 rests. So I'm going to put on a metronome here, and I'm going to say rhythm number 1. So you're going to hear a 1 bar count in first of all. You're going to hear 1 bar of beeps on my metronome, and I'm going to say the rhythm. Ta, ta, sh, sh. So that was the first rhythm there, and I'm going to clap it as well now, and I get a 1 bar count in. Ta, ta, sh, sh. I'm now going to have a look at the next rhythm now. So it's a crotchet rest, and again crotchet, crotchet rest. So 1 bar count in again. Ta, sh, ta, sh. And I'm going to clap that again with a 1 bar count in. Ta, sh, ta, sh. Next note, this is a quaver, otherwise known as an 8th note. So it lasts for half a beat. Now that can be confusing. Like, we clap 1 beat, how can you say that something can last for half of that sound? An easier way to think of it might be to think that we can fit 8 of them in 4/4 time. In a bar of 4/4, you would fit 8 of these quavers into a bar. It looks very much like a crotchet, but as you can see, we have this tail sticking out at the end. That's what we call that, a tail. However, normally we group quavers in 2 or 4. As you can see in this example below, there are 8 quavers and I have them grouped in 2 groups of 4. The line that joins the quavers together is called a beam. Practice this by drawing 8 quavers into your manuscript copy, 4 on the first space and 4 on the 4th space. The stem goes up for the notes below the 3rd line on the right hand side and down for notes above the 3rd line from the left hand side, as always. When you see quavers, we're going to say T. So if you remember, for crotchets we said ta, for quavers we're going to say T. And again, we normally group them in 2, and for all the examples we're doing in first year, they would be in groups of 2 or groups of 4. So let's have a look at the first one here. We have crotchet, 2 quavers, crotchet, 2 quavers. So I'm looking at the example on the left. So I'm going to give you a 1 bar count in, so you're going to hear 4 beeps, and then I'm going to say the first rhythm. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti. And I'm going to clap that now, so I'll get a 1 bar count in again. Ta, ti, ti, ta, ti, ti. I'm now going to do the second one. I'm going to say it first. Ta, ta, ti, 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 ti. And then I'm going to clap it with a 1 bar count in. Ta, ta, ti, 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 ti. And I'm going to play a few of the first rhythms here. I'm going to play the top left corner. I'm going to call this number 1. 1 bar count in. Ti, 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 ta. Number 2. To the right hand side. Ta, sh, ti, 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 ti. And now number 3, which is the top right corner. So the 3rd one on the first line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ti, ti, ta, sh. Shh. Next line, so the 2nd row down, first on the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ti, 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 ta. Next one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ti, ti, sh, ta. Next one. 2, 3, 4. Ti, ti, sh, ti, 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 ti. Next. 2, 3, 4. Sh, sh, ti, ti, ti. Moving to the right, the middle of the bottom line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ti, ta, ti, ti, ta. Little mistake there. First 2 should have been ta. So we'll do that again. This is the middle one on the bottom line. 2, 3, 4. Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. And the last one, the bottom right corner after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, ta. There you go, guys. Hope that helped.